whose name was Billy Beg. Though born the son of a king, Billy didn't live the usual life of a prince. Billy worked the fields herding cattle every day from sunup until sundown. So he had a very long, hard day. So is this usual for a prince? No. Usually, when we hear princes, we think of them living in a castle. And do they even really do any work? No, but this prince is working really hard. Let's listen to see what else.
Maybe he wants to do it.
Maybe, we'll see. Billy spent so much time with the cattle that his best friend was the oldest bull in the herd, one with a speckled hide and a white face. So here the word face means the front part of the head. So Billy was very fond of the bull, and the bull was just as fond of him. So who's his friend? The bull. The bull is whose friend? Billy Beg, who is a prince. Very good. One day the old bull was sent to the market in town to be sold. So, do you think Billy Beg wants to sell the bull? No. We should all be facing this way. And pencils are away. There's no need for pencils out right now. Okay. So, when Billy heard this, he was very sad. But the bull said, "Don't worry, Billy boy. It will be all right. You'll be all right without me. In the grove behind the barn, there are 3 gifts for you: a magic tablecloth, a stick, and a belt made from the hide of my grandfather. If you unfold the tablecloth, you will never be hungry. If you wave the stick 3 times around your head, you will have the strength of 1,000 men. And if you wrap the belt around your waist, no enemy will be able to defeat you." So let's take a second and think about this. If the bull is talking, does this make this a fiction or non-fiction story? Non-fiction story. So he's talking. Does anyone remember the word for that when an animal talks?
No.
Let's see.
I remember.
Do you remember, Cora? You remember, Mason?
Personification.
Everybody say personification. Very nice. I like how Evelyn's showing me this too. Put your mask on, please. So, personification. So the bull is talking, which means it personified him. Personification. Turn your body facing me. So, with that, the bull left bravely for the market. At first, Billy Beg was too upset to do anything without his friend. He cried for 3 days and 3 nights. Then Billy remembered what the bull had said. When the sun rose the next morning, he went to the grove behind the barn and pulled out the tablecloth from beneath the tree. When he unfolded it, he found that it was covered with delicious food and drink. Billy ate and drank until his stomach was full. Next, he grabbed the stick and the belt that the bull had left him, and he set off to make his way in the world. So he set off to find a new job and a new place to live. He walked until he came to a fine old house. He knocked and an old gentleman came to the door. "Excuse me," said Billy, "I was wondering if you have any work." "As a matter of fact," said the old gentleman, "I do need someone to watch over my cows, pigs, donkeys, and goats." "But I am the best shepherd that you'll ever see," Billy interrupted. "Well," said the old gentleman, "that may be, but a giant has moved into the forest next to my pasture, and that beast has scared off the last 3 boys I've hired." "So what moved in next door?"
A giant.
What?
A giant.
A giant. And so the old man is trying.
Monstrous.
I bet that's where it will hear it. We'll see. So he's saying to Billy Beg, he's saying, "Well, you can try, but that giant has scared off the last 3 people I've hired." So, do you think he'll be able to do it?
Yeah.
Let's see. So "I'm not afraid of him," said Billy. "You will have me. I will take the job." So the old gentleman hired Billy to watch the cows, pigs, donkeys, and goats. The next day, Billy led the animals out to pasture and sat down on a rock. Later that day, a horrible one-eyed giant suddenly appeared from the rocks.
It was munch.
"Oh," said the giant, licking his lips, "here is a tasty treat. You are too big for one bite, but not big enough for two. What should I eat? What should I do with a tiny morsel?" Which a morsel is a tiny bite. "With a tiny morsel like you." Billy fastened it on his belt and grabbed his stick. So let's take a second. What did the bull say the stick would do?
Make him as strong as 1,000 men.
Make him as strong as 1,000 men. Next time we're doing, what did he say that the belt would do? What did he say that the belt would do, Zaylee?
Hurt him?
Yep, so no enemy would be able to defeat you. I want to look up the exact words. No enemy would be able to defeat you. So he has the strength of 1,000 men, and with that belt on, no one will ever be able to beat him.
Okay.
So he fastened on his belt and grabbed the stick. He swung the stick above his head how many times?
3.
3 times. Good listening. To give himself the strength of 1,000 men. It was a terrible fight, but finally Billy swung the stick and thwack sent the monstrous giant flying off a cliff into the sea. So who won the fight? Billy Big. When the old gentleman heard that Billy had driven away the giant, he patted him on the back and told him, "You are a fine boy, I'll double your wages," which means I'll give you twice the amount of pay. So Billy became a herdsman. So he kept watch over the gentleman's animals and served him well. That's what I'm saying. He watched over the animals, is what a herdsman is.
I know what you're doing.
Then one day the old gentleman came out of his house and yelled to his coachman, "Get the carriage, saddle up the horses, I'm going to town."
What? Yeah.
"What's the occasion?" said Billy. "Haven't you heard?" the old gentleman asked. Ooh, one of you can. "Haven't you heard?" the old gentleman asked. Billy shook his head. "A terrible dragon is in the village," explained the old gentleman. "The dragon has demanded the king's own daughter, a princess, as his prisoner." So who remembers what demanded means? Demanded. Demanded is he asked forcefully. So the dragon demanded. Oh, come in quietly. The dragon demanded the king's own daughter, the princess. Excuse me. Sit down. Turn and face me. Okay. Unless the king's champion fighter can beat the dragon, the poor girl is good as gone. Which means they're like, unless he can beat her, we can't do anything about it. Evelyn, is that what we're doing right now? Put your pencils away. We don't need any pencils on our desks. Put them away. "Oh," said Billy, concerned. Concerned is worried. Everybody show me concern. "That poor princess." The old gentleman got into his carriage and sped off into the city. Lots of other people came on horseback and in carriages and wheelbarrows. Billy decided that he would go and fight the terrible dragon. So, what characters have we met so far? Raise your hands. Kinsley. Billy. He's the main character. Good. We met Billy Beg. Who else? Lily?
The cow.
The bull.
Another cow.
Mason.
The giant.
The giant.
Yeah.
Put your mask on, Ellen. Okay, and Hadley?
That's the old man.
The gentleman. Very good. Okay,
And him. And the princess.
we haven't met her yet. We were just told about her. Okay, so what gifts does Billy receive from the bull? What gifts?
A belt.
Huh? Raise your hand. What gift, Sophia? The what? The stick? The belt, and what else? Kylie? The tablecloth, very good. So, Billy dressed himself as an old suit of armor that belonged to his master, and then buckled his special belt securely around the middle. I need a sitting. When he was dressed, Billy slipped on his boots, grabbed his magic stick, went to the stable where he mounted the brown mare, and rode bravely into town. Thousands of people had come to see the King's champion face the dragon. Billy saw the champion in the center of the crowd, pacing up and down, back and forth, dragging his heavy sword behind him. Next, he caught a glimpse of the princess gathered with her maidens, which means the other girls, gathered with her maidens at the front of the crowd. She was certainly beautiful, but looking a little bit nervous. Just then, there was a fearsome roar. Hand down. The dragon rose up out of the sea. He had fiery eyes with smoke billowing out of his nostrils and giant flames pouring out of his mouth. The King's champion turned white with fear. He dropped his sword and ran away. When the princess saw that the champion had fled, she began wringing her hands and crying. So she's crying. Why? Why is she crying, Mason?
Because he was demanded by the dragon.
Yeah, because the dragon demanded her, and if the King's champion couldn't beat him, she was going to go with the dragon. So, oh please, she called out, won't someone save me? At first, no one made a sound, but then Billy Beg stepped out of the crowd. He wore his borrowed suit of armor, and the helmet and visor were just big enough to completely cover his face, so no one knew who he was, not even the old gentleman. I will fight the dragon, Billy said. The princess and all the people. I missed this one. So this is him riding off. The princess and all the people were stared with wide eyes. The dragon charged at Billy, shooting fire from his mouth. Billy ducked to stay away from the flames. Then he swung his stick 3 times around his head. It was a terrible fight, but in the end, Billy Beg defeated the dragon. There was a great shouting and applause. The princess ran up to thank the mysterious knight, but Billy Beg mounted his horse to ride away. The princess reached out to stop him, but as the horse galloped away, she could only grab hold of one of his boots, which slipped right off his foot. So, how is this part of the story similar to the other parts of the stories you've heard? Well, how is that similar? Caitlin. They all lost their shoes. And did she know who he was? No, so listen. In all the stories, the other person had the other shoe, but did they know who it was? No. Billy Beg rode back to the old gentleman's farm. He took off the suit of armor, put the mare back in the stable, tossed his other boot into the haystack in the barn. When his master came back the next day, he told Billy everything that had happened. Isn't that amazing? Said the old gentleman. So does the gentleman know that it was him? Does he know? He does not. So he's telling him this amazing story. Does Billy already know what happened? Yeah, because he was there. But the gentleman doesn't know that. The next day, the king ordered his men to find the brave knight who had saved his daughter's life. The king's men went from house to house trying to find the man whose foot fit in the boot the princess was left holding. It took several weeks for them to make their way up to the old gentleman's farm. The king's men had all the servants try on the boot. The coachman stuffed his big foot into the boot, scrunching up his toes to make it fit. The cook put on his heavy wool socks to try to make the boot fit. But no one thought much of Billy Ben. But when they slipped his foot into the boot, they all saw that it fit him as well as his own skin. "What's this?" asked one of the men. "Is this your boot?" "It is," said Billy. "I have the other one just like it out in the barn." Then the men knew that Billy was the one who slayed the dragon. They found him. He was identified as the person who saved the princess. They put a velvet suit on him and hung a gold chain around his neck. Then they took him to the village where he married the princess and became the prince of that place. So,